So hopefully it should say along the top.
Yep.
You can see that it's recording. Yeah. All right, guys. Hello
Yeah.
to hello the outside world. I'm here with Daithí. Oh, Daithí, how do I pronounce your Fallamháin?
Close enough. A Fallamháin. Close enough.
Fallamháin. Okay. IFP candidate for Mayo, Irish Freedom Party candidate for Mayo, and recent attendee at the Tullamore protest. I'm also joined by David O'Reilly, independent
Conor,
candidate. How's it going, bro? What's your roads?
Good.
Independent candidate, independent nationalist candidate for Galway East in the recent general election 2020. Yep. You were running under a sort of an alliance, weren't you? I can't remember the name of it. Patriotic Independence or something like that. What was it? Yourself and Dara?
Patriot Independence in Galway, Dara and myself. So, yeah. That's what we were.
I understood you had a name for that alliance, but maybe you didn't. No, maybe I got that.
Yeah, just as Patriot Independence. So
okay.
Yeah, we're reviewing that how we might go forward. That's how we ran.
Okay. Well, thanks for running. In any case, for you gave the people of Galway East and West some representation, an opportunity to express their views, and you've picked up a mandate along the way. You've picked up several hundred votes each, and we're also joined by John McGhee. Sorry, is it McGhee? It's John McGhee, isn't it? Yeah, McGhee. Yeah. For a minute there, I was thinking John O'Gee, but then there's no such name as O'Gee. So John is from. You've been living in Tullamore for 10 years. That's the important thing. And John is one of the originators of the Tullamore protest against the asylum scam that's currently being foisted or threatened to be foisted upon Tullamore. And we also have James Cahill, who has come up from Tipperary. James has been a long time Patriot Online moderator in many's a live stream. All around good guy, 100% patriot, needs to be celebrated. People like you, James, are salt of the earth. You stick your name out. You go by your own name online. You show the rest of the world an example, and you're still alive. This is the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't even believe you've had the honor of being smeared in any papers yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, it's something to work up to. But there you go. I mean, there it shows you can do all this. You can use your real name, and you won't even necessarily get smeared, or mentioned in a paper or mentioned online. I mean, at this stage of the game, who are they going to? There's so many of us that are willing to go with the mask off, as it were. How would you say? What's the opposite of anonymously? Is there a word for that? I don't know, but whatever it is, overtly. Thanks. Okay, so it's one of the reasons, as we were chatting earlier on, I think it's high time that the people like yourselves, I'll include myself in that as well, and there are many of us that we are legion. The patriots who have actually stuck our neck out, left the house on Irish nationalist business, stepped out of the house, stepped out of that little comfort zone, and actually did something. Whether it was stood for election, canvassed for election, organised a political party, organised a protest, or attended a protest, whether it was an asylum scam protest or a free speech protest. It's high time that we were stepped into the vanguard and took the lead in this movement, because I think there's just been a little bit too much focus on, for want of a better word, the armchair nationalist and the windbags who will sit and call the shots in the background without having actually stepped out and got some experience to know what they're actually talking about. Okay, now there is a place for our researchers, etc. Yeah, but the vanguard is really the people like ourselves, and it's about time we took ownership of this movement in terms of the social media side of things and the live streams, etc. So with that in mind, there was a passage in Pearce's writings that caught my eye a couple of weeks ago when I was reading it. So if you'll bear with me, this is from a Hermitage, the collection of essays that he wrote in 1913. I have, as I have suggested, some proposals to make. The first is that we who are determined to rehabilitate this nation should commence working towards that end instead of arguing. The nationalist movement in Ireland has degenerated into a debating society. In all our national or quasi-national organs, we argue as to what a nation is, what nationality, what a nationalist, as if definitions mattered. Our love of disputation sometimes makes us indecent, as when we argue over a dead man's coffin as to whether he was a nationalist or not, and sometimes makes us ridiculous, as when we prove by a mathematical formula that the poet who has most finely voiced Irish nationalism in our time is no nationalist. As if a man's opinions were more important than his work. I propose that we take service as our touchstone and reject all other touchstones, and that, without bothering our heads about sorting out, segregating and labelling Irishmen and Irish women according to their opinions, we agree to accept as fellow nationalists all who specifically or virtually recognise this Irish nation as an entity, and being part of it, owe it and give it their service. This will save endless discussion and make it wholly unnecessary to inquire, before giving a fellow Irishman one's hand, what is his attitude towards bimetallism, or what his opinion of the playboy of the Western world. Okay, quick aside, obviously the references are dated, but we could say these days, hard Euro-scepticism or soft Euro-scepticism, or insert whatever thing that people love to argue about in YouTube comments between fellow nationalists. Okay, one quick paragraph more. But actually, it's lovely, isn't it? It's great. So let's take our time. This thing of service merits to be dwelt upon. Ireland, in our day as in the past, has excommunicated some of those who have served her best, and has canonized some of those who have served her worst. We damn a man for an unpopular phrase. I think of aside, I can think of something that happened recently. A picture. Anyway, continue. We deify a man who does a mean thing gracefully. The word to us is ever more significant than the deed. When a man like Singh, a man in whose sad heart there glowed a true love of Ireland, one of the 2 or 3 men who have, in our time, made Ireland considerable in the eyes of the world, uses strange symbols which we do not understand, we cry out that he is blasphemed, and we proceed to crucify him. When a sleek lawyer, rising step by step through the most ignoble of all professions, attains to a Lord Chancellorship or to an Attorney Generalship, we confer upon him the freedom of our cities. This is really a very terrible symptom in contemporary Ireland. It is not for me to judge the Reverend Barrys and the Ignatius O'Briens and the Thomas F. Maloney's. Now, obviously, we have our own equivalents of those in this day and age. And I say no word in condemnation of them here. I merely point out that they have not in any way served Ireland. They have served themselves and they have served England, or insert whatever foreign ruler, like in our case, in this generation, it's the EU. And when England and other supernatural bodies, and when England rewards them for their service, there is absolutely no reason why Ireland should rejoice. A bargain has been completed. Servants of England have done their day's work and have been paid their price. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Just scratch that last phrase because it wasn't really relevant. So, any response to that?
Well, yeah, I'll go first. If we could win this on the internet, it would be a lot easier. It's not going to work that way. We do need to get people on the streets. I don't think it has to be in their thousands. I think they just have to know that there are enough people that are representing other people. over the week we saw a couple of reports, and David can talk about this, but that there is a lot of support for being against the asylum centers and such, just on that one issue. It's just that people are too scared to come out, and we've seen that now. So we've got the backing now of even like regular newspapers. They say it. There's at least 35 to 40% against this, or at least in doubt of it, and especially when you bring in the numbers. Like in Tullamore, it's up to 168. But on the greater point, yeah, nationalism, the country is not going to be won on the internet. It's just not going to happen that way. Next.
How is the country going to be won, guys? What's our
Fruits on the ground?
Well, I'll talk
about it.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Conor?
Yeah.
David here. Yeah. Well, I think we have all come on this journey. I mean, we're all naturally shy, proud people who don't like to be examined and, personally examined with defensive of our age. And so, we have to engage with people, and you do that on a personal level. You don't do it in a private online capacity, because you have to go out and fight. You have to engage. The thing about engaging personally is you're risking something. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the pride and the shyness again. Your pride is hurt. Your shyness comes in, and you look to cover yourself. But if you're going to engage, you have to get past all that. We all have to knock on doors. We all have to talk to people. We have to engage with not only our friends but our enemies. And we have to risk losing. We have to challenge and see how it goes. And, we have to accept the outcome of how that challenge goes, how that interaction goes, and then learn from it. And this is the process. We have to learn who your enemy is, who your friends are, who are the neutrals. And I think there's some tactical discussion. For example, it says, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you'll win 100 battles and you'll lose none of them. And you have to go through this process of getting skilled at winning arguments, at winning political, social interactions. And if we're right, we need to be, we shouldn't be afraid to do that. So the first thing is to get over our shyness, engage, risk the engagement, risk the battle, learn from the outcome, and continue to challenge. And that's the process of going public. That's the process of talking to people on the streets, and and that's where we have to go. So that's my feeling about what you do on a personal level to engage, to become part of the contest, to become part of the struggle, to learn the skills which are winning, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's something that I could say about it, Conor.
And unlike the previous revolutionary period of 100 years ago, losing doesn't carry quite the same risks as it did back then. If you lost the battle back then, you risk losing your life. I don't think that's going to happen from a milkshake. Well, you never know with some of these Syrio agents would get hold of you, what they might do, if they got you in a dark alley. But sure, we know we're smart enough to avoid those sorts of situations. So John and/or James, anything you'd like to come in and say in response to what the lads have said there, or in response to just the putting service before? I think Pierce was saying, like, service is more important than your opinion. Show me what you can do, not what you say. Not your. I don't care about your opinion. Just show me what you can do for Ireland. Show me what you can do to help the cause.
Yeah, it's about putting your money where your mouth is. People cry on the internet about what's being done and what's not being done, and that's all it'll ever come to until somebody sets foot outside. I mean, it was like David was saying, you have to get over your shyness. It was a baptism of fire for me. I don't even drink. I don't have a local pub in Tullamore, not to talk of getting out onto the street and basically humiliating myself the first day. But I suppose the second week, then I became a bit more fluent with it, and I lost the self-consciousness that is attached to doing that. And when more people see that, you will get approached by like-minded people. I found that last week there was a lot of response, even though we had less than the first week. There was a lot of attention, from cars going by and from people.
That's very true.
Some of it was abusive, a little bit. People telling us we should be ashamed of ourselves, and what about the Irish going everywhere? But aside from that, there was a lot more support, and it was because it was the second week running. They saw that we weren't going away. It wasn't just a flash in the pan, and I think that's where it needs to grow from.
Daithí, you were saying there, you chipped in to say it was overwhelmingly positive.
It really was. Like the first week, it was a bit kind of like, 50-50 maybe. But the second week, a lot of cars were going by, honking their horns on our side, and you could just tell. But the only thing that after a while, you start thinking, if any of them would get out of their cars and stand with us for 10 minutes, there were like 15 cars at least that honked their horns with us. And we weren't there that long. So like if all of them had got out of their car, we'd have a real demonstration that like everybody would have to stand up and take notice of. But get out of your cars.
Well, we have to recognize is people are at different levels of participation, and people can move out of their level. There'll be people who will be scared witless to say anything. They've seen maybe Gearóid Murphy's fantastic video that just unmasks the asylum scam. It's on. If you haven't, for any member of the public watching this, this video is more aimed at people within the movement. But if you happen to be, of course, like our enemies will be watching this like a hawk trying to pick things up. Well, up yours, This is what really hurts them. This is if you're sitting there thinking at home, you think like, okay, if I send another couple of videos, and put them into this Facebook group, that's going to help, that's going to do something. That's going to show Antifa a lesson, and that's going to show these NGOs a lesson. This is what they hate. This is why my name's in the paper. This is why Daithí's name has been smeared in the paper. And to you guys, to you so-called journalists who think that you can intimidate us from standing up for our beliefs by smearing us in the paper, up yours. I'm going to... Okay, that's the better one. Yeah, that's marked high, Sorcha Pollock. How do you say it? I have no idea how to say your name.
You're speaking American now, though,
Yeah.
You're going the American style.
I know your game. Your game is to try and ruin my career. Well, you know what? If I can't go back and continue my career because you've smeared my name, you know what? I'll be here till the bitter end. Then that's.
Well, the basic reason to do that, though, the basic reason to try and get at us is just so that nobody joins us. It may not even be so much our personalities alone. It's just that they know if we're standing there, other people will eventually back us.
I know if it's not personal.
So that's the only reason to do it.
It's completely not personal. Yeah. And we provide immense leadership. You guys especially. I mean, I haven't been there yet, but you guys provide immense leadership. You just. David, would you like to say something about the survey?
Yeah, I would.
Or is now the moment, or maybe somebody else wanted.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go with something else, that's fine. Hello. Have we lost David?
No. Am I still here?
Yeah. We got you. Yeah.
Yeah. Still here. You're
a bit distorted. It's coming
and going. Is it?
It's coming and going a little bit. Yeah. Is there any way you could move around to maybe pick up the Wi-Fi a bit better?
Yeah, I'll have a go. I'll try moving around a bit. Well, my experience has been conflict, to be honest. Are you hearing me okay? Are you hearing me okay, Conor? Yeah, and my wife often says to me, how come no one ever gives out to you, and I don't know what it is. That hasn't been my experience.
They're afraid of you. They're afraid of you coming with a claymore and striking. They're afraid of what you represent. You represent the true Gael. You're in their nightmares.
No, it's also no, it's also. I mean, initially I was banned off Kinvara radio station, but they brought me back on for the election because I think they just recognised that that well, I don't know. They just maybe found me a bit more endearing after a while. And in Galway, I didn't get that media shutdown. You know, we got on, both Dara and myself were on Galway Bay FM, Kinvara Bay FM. We were in the debates, and you know, it was a joy to move past the conflict stage to learning the skills of engaging with the public, because initially I had a fairly hardline stance, and I learned that my policies were how hard it was to sell those policies. You know, I had three main policies, and the immigration one was the easiest one to sell. You know, I found that people were had a very strong attachment to the EU, and you know, that was very hard to challenge. That was probably one of the hardest ones to sell, and the Christian values were another one which were I must say that was tough going. So what I learned was that people weren't the way that I thought they were. You know, I learned the beast that is the public, and started to learn how to engage it. You know, and to start by saying with the EU, you know, things like, you know, we realize that people are attached to the EU. We realize that people are afraid of going back to the 50s. But I learned after in my how I would approach people. That's how I will talk to people, because it's acknowledging how the other ones feel, and you know, we have to acknowledge. You know, we're in our little bubble of our ideological perspective, and we want people to believe. We want to believe people are sympathetic to us or know what we're talking about, and that they will just come on side with us. But by engaging them, we realize just how much they don't know about what we know. We realize how what the things which motivate them to hold on to the state quo or the comfort zone that they're in, and we learn to challenge them and get skillful, and stop hitting them with hammers, and start you know, romancing them, start to you have to learn. And we really need to get the Antifa conflict behind us, because I think it's pretty much, you know, we're entering that phase where, you know, we're addressing the public, not our assassins, you know. I think that
it's a proxy. It's a proxy. They're a proxy enemy. They're a proxy enemy. They're just really a shadow enemy. They're a distraction. You know, the more time we spend obsessed with them, then the less time we spend actually doing the real job that we need to do, which is to engage with the public, let the public know that there's a nationalist alternative out there in political terms, and what we stand for. And when we do that, we're fantastic at it. Like I was chatting with some of some of the candidates, my party colleagues, at the weekend there, and we said out of the people that we did get talking to, which is very few in each electorate, unfortunately, because of the short electoral spell, and because the lack of activists, the lack of real dyed in the wool, somebody who will actually go out and take the risk and knock on the door and be prepared to learn the process. And nobody knows how to do it at the start. Nobody's perfect. You know, we don't. We're not born. You know, we're starting from scratch. We're starting a movement from scratch. So nobody really is an expert at this. We're all learning as we go along. Anyway, so as you were saying, like we need to be talking more about how engaging with the public, the ins and outs of engaging with the public. Like, just as you said, and that's interesting that you say, it's easy to be rigid in a dogmatist when you sit in your armchair and you never go out and engage with the public. But if we're going to put our ideas and our ideals and our principles into operation in this country, we need to be able to negotiate with the public. We need to be able to find find and refine what do they want? What are they in? What parts of our vision are they interested in? What will they go for? I mean, if there's part of our vision that they won't go for, we can't. It's not going to be workable. It's not going to be workable. We're not totalitarians. We're Democrats. We're not going to impose something on people. We're going to work with a certain demographic, which we believe is the majority that do believe in Irish sovereignty, that do believe in Ireland for the Irish, that do believe in putting Irish interests first, whatever way you want to put it. Okay, I've said enough. So over to you guys. John or James, anything you wanted to come in on there? Maybe something the other guy said, or maybe something about Saturday coming, or experiences from the previous Saturday.
Well, we were lucky to have representatives from two of the populist parties in the form of Daithí here from Irish Freedom Party, and Philip Dwyer came down all the way from Dublin as well. So we had people from east and west, coast to coast, literally helping us out. And, that's just so lucky to have that. And they were able to engage with the public really well, as the politicians they are. Both gave very good interviews. And Philip Dwyer's is actually up on, I don't know if you saw it. It was up
I have seen it. It's excellent, yes.
So, just
as is Daithí's, of course, yeah.
Yeah, express gratitude for that, and they handled the public's criticism very well, very diplomatically. Daithí dealt with the local Presbyterian minister who came up with us, who approached us on the first day. He's expressed disapproval at what we're doing. Little did he know that the people they want to move in there would be opposed to his choice of religion, but he couldn't reconcile with what we were doing.
It's important to just underline that we don't have an issue with genuine asylum seekers. We don't have an issue with limited migration. It's when you're up to 160 people with no checking are just dumped in a small town or a village and completely going to change the demographic against the wishes, without consultation, without the permission of the local people. That's what we would have an issue with.
We don't know who's coming in, and we know that these people now are destroying their documentation before they even get to clearance in the airport, so that they come in with a blank slate. They can make up a name on the spot. They can have a criminal background for all we know, and they've just been absorbed into communities where they could pose a potential threat. Mm-hmm. That's just not acceptable. We need to have everybody vetted who are going to be entering into our various communities here.
Excellent. Daithí, is there anything you want to say about whether this is is this an issue to be dealt with by the locals only, or is it an all-Ireland issue?
Well, it's been sort of a pet peeve of mine, this idea that like one locality gets to decide what's going to happen for the whole country. Because I had said, when people come into these areas, if you get 168 young men, women, families, whatever they are, Tullamore, for example, they're probably not going to stay there. They might for a little while, they'll engage in blah, 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 but they're going to leave eventually. Most of them will probably go to Dublin or one of the major cities looking for work or for educational stuff. So it's not really like they're making the decision only for themselves. There's not a big wall around Tullamore that means they can't go anywhere else. So like we should be able to like all have a conversation and say, well, are we all agreeing that these places should have new people just poured into them? And I don't think we should. This is a national conversation, not a local conversation.
100%, yeah. And it falls to us with a slightly thicker skin to lead, to lead the way forward and take the slings and arrows from the naysayers, from the the West Brit press and the NGO sector, the enemy within. Let's say, well, there's no two ways about it. That is the enemy within, unquestionably.
Yeah, like I think everybody has sympathy with people who really are fleeing danger. But one of the things that the state has done is they're blurring the definition between what a refugee is and what an asylum seeker is. And the media deliberately does this. They're all refugees as far as they're concerned. But really, refugee, like legally, is a status, right? That's a status you get once you've been approved that your case is real. All the rest you're just an asylum seeker until you're a refugee. So we don't know who the asylum seekers are. And as John was saying, a lot of these people are actually like on the airplane. Between the airplane and going to immigration, they're dumping their passports somewhere along the way. This is what Flanagan acknowledged that this was happening. And that's why they finally started stopping it. That's why last year there was an upping of getting rid of people, particularly from Albania and Georgia. So they're very proud of themselves.
Which were the
getting rid of
two biggest representative countries in the asylum system.
Yeah.
And both safe countries. I'm just back from Georgia. A beautiful place. Beautiful buildings, very clean, very peaceful. I had a tourist brochure, the safest country in Europe.
There you go.
The sixth safest country in the world.
Yeah.
Well, then they're coming to the wrong place if they're looking for refuge.
Coming, seeking asylum. But there has been a bit of a crackdown.
We know all that, Conor, and that's the interesting thing about the survey is that when we take our knowledge, which is that 90% of these people are refused asylum by the Irish state, and then we compare it to what Tullamore locals believe, and we surveyed 100 Tullamore locals in the main street, and this is where we have to start engaging, because what we find is that the Tullamore people really believe that the majority of these guys are genuine asylum seekers. They believe that the majority of them are in favour of direct provision, and that's really what we're up against. And it's disappointing for nationalists who are on the keyboards, who really believe that we have a case here and that people should be listening to us and people should accept our understanding of what's happening here. But then when you survey them, you hear all the brainwashing. You hear the especially amongst the more gentrified people, they're very much in the role of a giver, of a benefactor, and they see that as the only role that they occupy, and so they're supporting. 55% of Tullamore people supported the asylum centre.
That was on Saturday.
And then about 25% Saturday. 25% opposed it, and that was disappointing. About 20% were uneasy about it or didn't know. And but the positive thing that came out of it is that about 40% of people felt that 168 people was too many, and about 30% of people were uneasy about it. Only 25% of people, and only about 30% of people believed that the number was right. That Tullamore could accept that number of people, and only 3% felt that Tullamore could accept more. So, we have a very strong mandate in that 3% believe that Tullamore could take more. We have a very strong mandate from that to say that certainly Tullamore shouldn't take any more, that 70% of people are either uneasy or feel that 168 is too much. So that's a winner right there. And despite the fact that 55% of people in theory support direct provision on a purely virtue signaling level, I would say, a lot of those people are either uneasy or feel that 168 is too much. Now, we also had people who would break with the anonymity of the survey and disclose stuff to us, and that was teachers, doctors who would say, I'm a doctor, we haven't got the infrastructure for this, and I oppose the number that are here, and I oppose the centre for that reason. Teachers would say the same. They would talk about their experiences of teaching refugees, but then they say, look, these guys have no English, and it's a massive drain on the resources that aren't there. So so what we're coming to there is that whereas people may disappointingly feel well disposed initially to the idea of the asylum centre, and a lot of them don't really understand or know even many. I mean, only half of the people, a little more than half, even knew that it was happening, or how many people were there, or where the people were coming from. So this support is a very general, vague kind of support. But when you start to dig into it, you start to realize that a lot of those people are not comfortable about this, and that's where our role may not be challenging may not be purely challenging the asylum centre, but educating the local Tullamore people about about the numbers of asylum seekers who are refused, about where they're coming from, and all that kind of thing. So this is the process. You get out there, you engage, you find out what people are saying, you accept the outcome, and this is a big thing that online guys don't want to do. Accept the outcome. It's disappointing. Accept the outcome of the election. It was disappointing, but we are where we are. We still have I'm live streaming, please leave me alone. And so we accept that outcome, and we look at where we are, and we devise a strategy based on the virtue of our arguments and how to go ahead. Now, come back to me on Kinvara in a bit, because I don't want to talk the whole stream, but some good news later on. Some success from our campaign.
Excellent.
And our strategy. But I wanted to leave it to everybody else, and I don't want to talk the whole time myself,
No problem.
So come back.
David, guys, those statistics you mentioned, David, and look, that's fantastic. The expertise that you bring in terms of doing the survey, and this is what we need more of. Is this coming together, putting heads together, rather than just being little armchair warriors working on our own and reinventing the wheel every time. We've got so much experience that we can really pull that experience. I wonder, I mean, John, maybe you could fill me in on this. Wasn't there a campaign? Didn't the local press go on a bit of a scourge against the protest during the week? Isn't that the case?
In the week leading up.
I wonder what. So I want to ask two questions. So could you tell us about that, and then could you speculate on what might have been the effect of that on those statistics that David mentioned? I mean, had the survey been run the week previously, and this is not I'm not trying to say, oh, you should have run the survey the week before or anything like that, because obviously we are where we are, and it's great that we have the survey. It's great that we have this stuff coming together. But I want the next community, the next protest, to learn from this protest, and each one to go, incrementally to be able to take the experience moving forward.
Organically, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in the week leading up to the first protest, the press were, they were posting on their, I think the local radio station was posting on their website, and the Tullamore Tribune was posting that there was going to be a protest, and then they ambushed whoever was there on the day, tried to get the worst parts of the interview. They clipped the worst parts so that they could be heard. Any substance went on the cutting room floor. So it painted us out to be, to use the R word again.
Just on that point, next time it might be a good idea the next time an interview is obviously we mightn't get the chance to Tullamore, but for the next protest, if an interview is going with the press, get somebody to record it, so you can always publish the unedited interview as well after they do their cut and paste job, their editing job, their stitch up. We can always publish the full unedited interview so people can compare the two, and the timbre of the two, and the tone, and see what sort of a job has been done on the cutting room floor, as it were. Sorry, go on ahead, John.
Some of them didn't even identify themselves as press. I just found that later on when they went around asking people.
They just sidled up.
They deliberately asked, where are you from? And I gave I just thought they were being friendly, so I said my home county, which is not Offaly, And then they went back and said, Oh, hardly any no locals at all. They were all.
Never mind, you've been living in the town for 10 years.
Course, yeah, that didn't matter. Like I say, they picked the worst parts out.
Mm.
So that would have influenced a lot of
bastards. Bastards.
That would have influenced a lot of people.
Yeah.
But when David came around with his survey, I suppose they were already pre-programmed at that stage. So I don't, as you said earlier, I think getting the survey done before the first protest would have been optimum. But unfortunately, it was a very last minute thing because we didn't have a lot of time to play with.
No, you better just go ahead and getting it out there, getting something started anyway.
We were at the end of February when we found out, and then we were told refugees would be moving in March. So it was quick call a protest now. So we didn't have time to conduct surveys.
Potential refugees, let's say potential. Yeah. 10% of them will turn out to be refugees based on past figures. Yeah. So, we're going to say something else there?
Well, the press have to toe a left-wing agenda all the time. They have to keep their jobs. So, I guess, they were going to sully our names by hook or by crook.
David, on a more optimistic thing there, though, just even looking at 103, is it 103 FM there?
It's 103.
103, yeah. But I was looking at their Facebook board on this subject, and there were a lot of people on our side. There were, even at that, and they were denouncing the idea of calling people racist and all this stuff. They were just saying it's like nonsense. There were people supporting us. Right. It's still true. So like, I wouldn't be too gloomy about that. They might be very quiet, and like a lot of people may have like bought the mainstream thing, but a lot of people just aren't buying it. They're just not coming out yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully they'll.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Daithí. We found that Kinvara people were much more, you have to get a sense of the local area and how local people behave. And Tullamore people were much more guarded than Kinvara people. Kinvara people answered every question, yes or no. They didn't, but Tullamore was much more circumspect. So when somebody says, I don't know, or I'm not sure, you have to read that they are really standing back and saying, I'm withholding my judgment for now. And, really the Kinvara had a slight majority in favor, a slight majority against direct provision, whereas Tullamore had a slight majority who said they were in favour. The big difference was Tullamore had a large number of people. And Tullamore had a large number of people who were not going to disclose how they felt, and I think that may be we may have got a false reading there in Tullamore. Also on the question of, do you believe that these guys are genuine refugees fleeing war, or are they economic migrants? In Kinvara, and this was the biggest difference. In Kinvara, about 60% of people said they believed they were economic migrants and not fleeing war. Whereas in Tullamore, it was the complete opposite way around. People were much more innocent and accepting in what they were told. The state narrative was much much less challenged in Tullamore than in Kinvara for whatever reason.
And a leaflet went through the door during the week,
an issue of.
Before you did your survey that week, the government had issued a survey to every house in the town, telling them how great it was going to be and what the services were going to be.
It was a propaganda, just a propaganda piece.
Yeah.
So that's bound to have had
people really believe that.
You see, this is what annoys me.
This
is what annoys me, that we come up with ideas of like doing leaflet drops to basically re-quote the government's own statistics back to people, right? From the government's own websites and information sources, and then we say this is a great idea, and 98% of our so-called patriots just let that slide past and nobody does anything about it. But of course, our enemies pick up on. They'll hear anything that goes out in the public domain and think that's a great idea, and they'll use our best tactics back on us as well, and our own people. Many of our own so-called patriots will just prefer to sit in their armchair and watch it all from afar. This is what annoys me. Like, you know, so you put a great idea out there that you hope that some people will pick it up.
Don't be annoyed,
Wrong
Conor.
people.
Don't be annoyed, because that teaches us something, and it teaches us even in this live stream here, it teaches us that the state apparatus, the institutions of the state are working hard to promote that narrative, and whereas in Kinvara,
it was overtime to keep a lid on it, to keep it. Keep their narrative, their story, their Jackanory in place. Yeah. Sorry, go on, David.
So in Kinvara, it was a much more blunt force push from the local politicians and NGOs, you know. And so I think that probably is one of the reasons why Kinvara people were a bit more, could see the battle lines drawn a bit clearer. Whereas in Tullamore, it seems to be that the institutions of the state are behind this, you know, the message. So that's something that we have learned just standing here talking to each other, is that how do we address this campaign by challenging training a fire on the institutions of the state, you know, it's all about educating the people. It's about and that's where we need to be pushing our, you know, we need to be targeting the public and educating them. But I will say one good bit of news. The refugees, asylum seekers in Kinvara have vacated the Merryman Hotel, as far as we know. That you know, that now there's a win. You know, nobody believed that in Kinvara that the refugees would ever leave. It was just the thin edge of the wedge, and that there was just going to be more and more and more. Well, it seems to be now, in the last week, it seems to be the last 2 weeks, the reports are that there are no refugees in the hotel now. So that shows that
potential
a couple
refugees.
of things.
Potential refugees.
Well, exactly. Asylum seekers. Seekers. And so from the moment they got in, was, you know, then the challenges start for the guys who think they've won. Then they have the reality of the asylum seekers living cheek by jowl with the local people, the tensions, the frictions. Then
house prices going down.
House
sales not going through.
House sales not going through. Yeah, house sales not going through because of this, and then local business community start to push back in the way that they do. Now, nobody in Kinvara. Was 3 of us activists against 20 NGOs on the street trying to stop us from leafleting. So, you know,
that's ridiculous.
The mob has a lot of advantages in that
they mobbed you.
Have politicians on the side. Oh, it literally mobbed us, yeah. But there was Mercy Rivers, myself and Dara, and we were all bold and brave. And, you know, we weren't going to be... we weren't going to allow them to dictate to us. And we went down to Ennis as well and really single-handedly ran that campaign as well. But by putting pressure on our kind of pressure, and this is why I'm saying to John is, don't worry about not being prepared with your survey. You did by far the most important thing, which is to challenge. You know, to make a challenge.
Make a stand.
And, you know, you're not going to do, take a stand, make a challenge that people can see and feel, you know, that these guys, the hotel owners, the local politicians can see, you know, Carol Nolan is driving up and down there and looking at an actual, not a Facebook campaign, you know, and so we're going to publish. You know, so you've done it. You've done your bit. We've done the survey, and like I say, this was a 4-5 month campaign in Kinvara, and not a whole lot happened, in fact. But a process. We assisted in putting the pressure on. We won the local media round by the end of it. I think the local media felt annoyed that the ministers had leaned on them, that the politicians had leaned on them. They were annoyed that an implicit threat to their existence. And I think that these campaigns, there is collateral damage to the institutions of the state by forcing anti-democratic things like asylum on local populations. And I think that the battle is going on silently within the institutions of the estate and
possibly
state,
even within the parties, possibly within the parties themselves.
Exactly. And we don't see this.
You can imagine a tension between the rural TDs and the D4 TDs behind closed doors.
Oh yeah.
Especially after the reversals that they had, the two so-called pillar parties, and the ground that they've lost. Yeah, I mean, they only have to look at themselves for that,
and the NGOs are losing. The NGOs are losing the battle. They are not winning the confidence of the people. They're being exposed. These guys want to hide in the background. They want to look like ordinary citizens. But we're exposing them as the fanatical activists that they are, and that this is just not normal. And, so, a whole process is going on just by us being there. So, John, you're a hero, and you are worth, you're worth 5 Facebook campaigns stood on the side of that street, So fair play to you, and we're going to publish the results of that survey and circulate it. And, this will also give people a solid footing to stand on. You can, it's disappointing that the whole town is not going to blockade with a 24/7 protest, but the people, 70% of the people are uncomfortable with 168 people there. And the likes of Carol Nolan, the likes of the rest of them can look at that and
John
say,
Leahy,
this is a basis that I can see.
Yeah, John Leahy.
Yeah,
Ken
I mean, we have to give proper respect. Who was the other guy?
Ken Smullen.
Ken Smullen, yeah. We have to give respect, proper respect to those politicians who stuck their neck out. Well, of course, the Overton window was moved since Uachtarard, since last year. I mean, this is these protests are all part of the same movement. I mean, we got to feel that we're making ground. We are. Maybe expected everything. Uachtarard was the beginning of the end, but then Uachtarard took a funny turn with the management there, just selling out a little bit, maybe on the original message. But sure, to be fair, they got the result. So by any means possible, by any means necessary. I do feel though that the next ones that came along should have built on the lessons learned from that, and each time stripped away the nonsense and stripped away a layer of nonsense that had been sort of like sold up, cooked. Appeasement, yeah.
Appeasement
I have in my hand a piece of paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I mention something right there about oftentimes they're calling us as if we're divisive. Like, we're not divisive. The division is already there among the people. We're just representing a certain portion of that division. It's not like we're creating it. We are it. This is already existing. And so the more the government tries to push this on us, the more they're really forcing people to take stands on it. And that's just what's happening. There's no reason any one of us should be on the streets, right? Really. It's just that we're just citizens for wherever we're from, and we're just deciding, okay, this is the point where we break.
The failure of the political process. There's no consultation. The local politicians are intimidated. Fair play and God bless the ones that have stood up. We've seen the politicians who stood up before the election. Noel Grealish, Michael Collins, Veronica, who talk about the unmentionable, who talk about the taboo, who bring up the elephant in the room, who talk about the mass immigration, and are prepared to tell the truth about it. They all get returned. Yeah. So there's votes out there in this. The public will reward some. A poet is. The prophet is never recognized in his own lifetime, but let's hope that maybe Maybe let's hope that the prophets of they were talking about back then were shorter lifetimes, but they probably were back in the Old Testament days. What was I going to say?
Well,
Like
Conor,
they spot on Pierce,
agree.
they spot on the guys from 1916 as well, and then 2 years later they were heroes. So, the public are fickle. The public need leadership like what you guys are providing for them. And of course, there are stratums within the public. There are those that are never going to be moved, and the vast majority of them are probably afraid to say what they really think. And there's a lot of support out there. And I would hazard a guess that had that survey been run before the press had gone to town, scolded the town of Tullamore, and there would have been more resistance to this plantation.
I think some very simple truths would change the public's mind very quickly. And one is like, if you do think, even with the government stats, that like 37% get approval for refugee status, they like to tout it as 37% get approval. Well, that means the rest of it are people who are failing. That means the vast sums of all this money that's being spent is being spent on people who don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. So they come into the country, live for years, get millions and millions of euros spent on them, and it's wasted money, completely wasted money.
I thought the figure was a lot lower than that, maybe about 10.
Well, it depends which ones you're believing now. There's a lot of different figures, and the government's even talking about like how many thousands they deported last year. But these are people they didn't even let off the plane.
Yeah.
So they're starting to mix the figures up. But anyway. But yeah, the thing is, like, the public, I don't think ultimately the public doesn't agree with us. They just don't know all the facts yet. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm not too hard on the public, because like most people come home, they have their dinner and they watch a little TV and they go to bed. So like, we're spending a lot of time researching this stuff. They just don't know yet. And the government is giving them things to just, well, we'll go back to appease them, to shut them up for a while, as long as they can keep pushing more of this agenda. Sooner or later, if we do our job, and if we want to put ourselves as leaders, it's leaders in an education effort. And part of that is just getting up on the streets with the signs and just saying, look here, look at this site, look at this information that we have. That's basically our role, as I see it anyway now.
Yeah, I think too, Guy, is when people compare what we're doing to the Gearóid campaign, the whole thing has moved on since then. I mean, the thing, no Grealish cleaned up in Gearóid on votes. I mean, the Gearóid campaign was very ham-fisted. It was 250 in a very small town.
Yeah.
The people had no option except to. And the thing is, all the virtue signalers were included in the march. The NGOs were marching too, because even the guys who were there across the street from us, they opposed direct provision too. So what Gearóid managed to do was unite the left and the right, if you like. But the problem is, of course, further down the line, that means you have to argue for better treatment for refugees and more rights.
Potential refugees.
And that's just,
asylum seekers,
Yeah, you can't go down that road. So, but the government learned too. What the government started to do was what they've done in Tullamore, Kinvara and Ennis, which is just get people in quick, get a few of them in, not too many, and they're learning. So they're changing their tune, and it's not thugs phoning the leaders in the middle of the night threatening them. They've learned to do this big education policy and to change the tactics. But we're where we are now, and we're not going to get the virtue signals out to back us up like they did in Gearóid. But what we're doing is still it's a different technique, it's a different tactic, and it's a different challenge. It's all moved on since then. So what we're doing now is we're challenging a very different beast to what Gearóid was.
Yeah. Every euro spent on a fake asylum seeker is a euro not spent in a hospital. Mm-hmm. Let's just put it that way. And since most of the asylum seekers are fake, That's a lot of money wasted.
Yes.
Pretty basic point, you know.
But apart from anything else, it's not good for the people of those towns. It's not good to have their demo. It's totally unproportional. One or two families of real, genuine refugee, real, genuine, proven refugees. Nobody's going to deny them that. But 160 mainly fighting age men. Come on, that's you're not solving problems. You're taking men out of a country. Where are the women and the children? That's what
They're coming.
They're coming next. That's of course. So it's never 168. The family resettlement programs. It's going to be 1,000 before you know. So it's not good. Our judgment and policy should be what's good for the people of Ireland. Is this good for the people of Ireland? If it's not good for the people of Ireland, then we need to be allowed to question. John, did you want to come in on something there? I get the sense you had something to add.
No, that's all right. It was already said for me.
Nope.
Junior, James, I want to acknowledge you and praise you for getting hold of Daithí. I was out of the country, and you just you got involved in this. I knew you and I knew Daithí, but and you guys didn't know each other, but you just picked up his content, and that was a great piece of social entrepreneurship, and we need more get up and go like that. So fair play, and that needs to be acknowledged.
Thanks, man.
We need people from all corners of Ireland to descend on Tullamore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's in the center of the country. I mean, it's a great place to take a stand. It's right in the middle of the country. So it's equidistant from everywhere in the place. So if you're going to go to one, go to this one right away.
John, do you want to give us the details for the next protest, the next demonstration?
The next one is this coming Saturday, 14th, isn't it? Saturday's the 14th at 11 o'clock at the same site, at the site of the proposed direct provision centre in Tullamore.
And do you have is it 11 to 1, or do you want to keep it loose?
About 11 to 1, or if anybody feels the need to stay on, then there's no time limit on this. Mm-hmm. We figure that 11 is the ideal time because people are busy shopping, and the town is mm-hmm. pretty much at its most packed than it would be all week. And,
I guess you'd like people to be come along as close to 11 as possible, so that you get the energy,
exactly.
of whatever, the maximum number of people there at the same time, rather than coming and doing a relay, passing the baton,
rather than stragglers, and people getting to know each other, and then we can network from there.
Yes. Okay, great stuff.
Like a lady joined us last week. Surprising to us all, and she was a firecracker. She was giving out copies of the Patriot to passers-by, and she was just really hands-on. And we just need more people like that who are not.
This is how you find them. You find them in the firing line, up in on the front.
Mm-hmm.
The real soldiers. Obviously, I'm talking about metaphorically soldiers, because this is we're all absolutely committed to democratic means to pursue our aims and our vision. Daithí, did you want to say something?
Just for anybody else that happens to be coming by, it's we're perfectly happy to talk to people. Even if you're in opposition, we're perfectly willing to just stop and have a chat with people about why we think what we think. Mm-hmm. So just in case somebody's local and is just kind of seeing what's going on, it's that's okay. Just stop. We're just going to have a chat with you. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, that's right. Daithí was approached was abusive to him online in the week leading up to the protest. And he approached. We just saw this guy coming with a Ramones T-shirt and a scarf, and we just knew straight away, soy boy, NGO, he's coming for us. And he expected to get into some heated discussion with Daithí, and Daithí just completely talked him off the ledge, and he ended up apologising to Daithí for being.
But he was all right. He just got a bit ahead of himself on something.
Yeah, that's the humanity of a debate. That's the humanity of a discussion. There was some. You have to give him some credit for at least being prepared to listen and being prepared to look for the truth. Logos.
But I think it's the danger of the Facebook thing again. People get into argument mode, and just when you're face to face with somebody who's not yelling at you or whatever, and just we can talk about this now. And it's pretty civilized. I mean, if we're going to ever win anything, that's how we're going to do it. One at a time. And especially with the people who oppose us, often they'd oppose us for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? So. That's what we need.
Yeah, and And Guy, we have to realize that we were those guys. We've been through an education process ourselves.
Sure.
And I mean, I started off marching for Nelson Mandela. And this is a journey any NGO can go on if they're honest enough and want to challenge. We can make our arguments, and I will say that what you're saying is so true. By engaging, you are honing your skills, you're winning. It's a cathartic process. I mean, the last thing I'd like to say is some of the people we've come across have been fantastic. I mean, two people, I mean, even the people who worked out that I was part of the protest when I was doing the survey, I said to them, guys, okay, yeah, we are, opposition, but did I ask the questions fairly? And they all said, yeah, you answered the questions fairly. But I'll leave you with two little, and I've probably gone on a lot, but I have a lot to get off my list.
We're lucky to have
down
you.
In Ennis. Down in Ennis, an Asian man, obviously an Indian person, approached me, and I was giving out the leaflets about fake asylum seekers. And I thought to myself, am I going to dodge giving this lad a ticket, or am I going to? And I said, no, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of what I'm saying. I'm giving him a leaflet. And sure, he took it, and he said, I'm looking for a job in that place. I want to cook down there. But he said, I'm a Sikh, he says. And, I too are concerned about a lot of Muslim men, moving in there. He says, because we've experienced of these guys. They have, and in his words, these guys have no respect for women, and this is what we're, and he would have given out, he said, will I give out leaflets with you? And I said to him, no, you're going for a job there, don't target yourself. But really, I should have said, yeah, give out the leaflet. I was trying to protect him.
No,
but
no,
I'd
right
say
thing.
this,
That's,
and this is the
ethical. You were ethical. You acted ethically, David, there, because his enthusiasm would have put himself into a position where he could have lost himself the job. Yeah. So fair play to you. Very ethical.
I don't want to, and that speaks yards to the NGOs, because they think we're hate foreign people, that we're just backward knuckle dragging people who are just we are demonstrating by our actions that we're not it's not the people, it's the economic situation,
it's the numbers and the policy
very much. And I'll finish by saying this. A lot of Tullamore people were very, standoffish, very guarded. One young girl walked up, and I asked her, would she do the survey? And she had a very, very different reaction to the rest of them. She was very much a college, quite pretty, but, not really, a bullying kind of person. She was a little bit shy. But when I asked her, would you do 5 questions about the asylum centre, her face changed and a determination came across her face, and she said, yes. And I said, are you in supporting or in opposition? And she said, I oppose it, And I started to see there's a story behind this opposition. This girl has experience of something that she's not telling me, but I can read it on her face, and she's concerned. She was the most concerned person and the most determined to give her answers. And they were strong, they were determined, they were in opposition. And this is the other story. There is the virtue signaling, being the benefactorial role initially that the Irish take changes. It changes to a role of competitor. And on occasions, it changes to the role of victim, And this is the journey that people some people will go on. And this is part of what we're seeing there. So Tullamore, yes, naive, all that kind of thing, but not everyone by any means. So I don't want to say a whole lot more because I've been talking a lot. But thanks guys for being patient with me, and I'll put it back to you, Conor.
Okay, thanks, guys. You guys are the best of Irishmen, all four of you, and there are dozens of men like you. We want and women, dozens of men and women like you. I only wish I could say there were hundreds and thousands, but those people will come forward to follow your lead, and it's the likes of you guys that are the example. You don't have it all worked out. We don't know what to say sometimes. The words stumble out of our mouths. We make mistakes, but we're taking a stand, and that's the main thing. I would like to invite YouTubers who have a lot more subscribers than I have to look at these guys. These are the sort of people that if we're serious about this movement, this is the example. These men and women. Obviously, there's no women present, but that woman that you just mentioned is present in spirit, and Mercy is present in spirit. These are the people who are the real vanguard of this movement, and they need to be respected more. I ask YouTubers to talk to, interview and support these people more, please.
Yeah,
so
actually, there were women at the first and second marches. There were more women at the first one, but
yeah,
they are
there. You
there.
go.
Right,
there you go. These guys and girls.
One lady showed up at the second one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Guys, what is it I need to say at the end? Yeah, please like, subscribe. Daithí knows better than I. Register for updates and leave plenty of comments, please.
Do you take Bitcoin?
Actually, I'm still trying to. I need some help with my election expenses. Don't we all, says Daithí? Don't we all? And David, of course, as well. You can't talk about the fairy godmother, David. No. We all need our fairy godmothers. We all need fairy godmothers. So I have a link below, but these. And when you're done with that, then go to Daithí, and then when you're done with that, go to David as well. Because
all on Twitter, all on Facebook.
We're putting ourselves out there. But I mean, if you can't, don't worry. That's not the main thing. Look, I'd be happier. I'd rather see 1,000 shares of this and 1,000 people there on Saturday, that rather than €1,000 in my bank account any day of the week, any damn day of the week. That's so please try and make it on Saturday. Further than that, look, we don't think that protests on their own are going to stop this policy. We're pushing it back and pushing it back. Sooner or later, we're going to need voices in the Dáil. So remember that it's a political game at the end of the day. We need political representation. So get political. Every one of us watching this who agrees with us needs to become a political animal. You need to, at some stage, sooner or later, you need to be at least voting for us, supporting the parties, the nationalist parties, and ideally joining up and becoming a common member. So we've got SCI represented here, we've got the National Party represented with John, and we've got the Irish Freedom Party, of course, represented with myself and Daithí. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Go to me while out of. And thank you to our listeners. And hopefully we'll do many more of these types of things. So in other contexts, we'll join up again. And great chatting to you guys.
Thanks very much.